Employers of Reddit, what's the worst CV you've ever seen? I had a guy apply to an online job posting, but all he sent was a picture of his dog, and somehow no contact information. This I get. I'd burned at least one e-bridge by attaching the wrong file. Was supposed to send a resume, sent an unfinished board game design instead. Worse was that I spent the time to write a really good, well-researched cover letter, then boom. I just didn't follow up out of shame. The hiring manager loves making board games in his free time. Everybody else at work and home thinks it's silly. Finally, he receives your board game design and thinks, finally, the piece that completes my puzzle of loneliness. I don't care what your resume looks like. You're hired, new best friend, and you never followed up. I think it was submitted as a joke, I hope, but it had official header info, name and contact info, but was blank underneath and said, in hand scrawl, me need worky. We were hiring for a position in IT recently. One applicant was this lady, around 60. Used to work in IT in the 90s, then quit to watch her daughter's children. Most recent job was cashiering in a supermarket. From her CV I learned, when she was 17 she visited the US for a couple of weeks on a student exchange program, where she met David. They fell in love. Afterwards they kept in contact, until he eventually came to our country, and they got married. They had an exciting life, being roadies for rock bands and such. Somewhere along the line they managed to finish uni and had 2 daughters. David was the love of her life. Then something happened. Unfortunately she didn't elaborate, and David isn't in her life anymore. I never found out whether he died or they got divorced or something. She devoted all her energy to her daughters and their offspring, since that was all she had left of David. Now, after the grandchildren are old enough, she wants to work in IT again. David's name appeared in the application, CV plus cover letter, a whopping 17 times. Sometimes I wonder what happened to him. I feel bad for her, I really do. Chances are she may have been actually good but just doesn't have any sort of coaching to sell herself in today's job market. I had a similar experience recently. We hired an older lady for a tech position, late 40s 50s but not 100% sure because you can't ask for age. Her resume was kind of similar to what you describe. She had been out of the workforce for about 15 years to raise their children. Prior to that she worked as an accountant for a company for a while. So she had computer job experience, just not recent. Last job was like 15 years ago, as I said. The job was only for 2 months, and she decided she was just sort of bored at home and wanted to work again. The interview she didn't really do very well. She talked about non-work stuff too much, her family mostly. She was candid about her lack of recent employment, and just didn't interview very well. Really, she talked about her family and her life because she couldn't talk about work because she hadn't done it for a while. She did emphasize on her cover letter and resume, and in the interview she knew how to use computers and said she handled all her family's finances due to her accounting background and as such felt comfortable in Excel and Word and all this. So while she had no job experience she still kept up with how to operate the latest computer programs, etc. But no real official way to verify that through an employer. Normally we hire people ages 20 to 25 for kind of grunt computer work. But she was nice and everything, so fuck it, why not? She ended up being one of our best employees. Her attention to detail in Excel was fucking amazing. During downtime she'd correct data entry mistakes and actively fix problems. I can't emphasize enough how killer she was of an employee. She was literally the best employee we hired that season, not even using literally figuratively. I mean, she was the legit best. After the project was done she asked for a reference, and boy howdy would I give her one if anyone calls. She mentioned she was going to try and work for someone I knew after she finished with us. I actually stopped by that person's business for a chat on my own time and specifically said they should hire her because she was so damn good. So anyway, your prospect probably talked about David a lot because he was the most important part of her life for almost 2 decades. Takes a pretty strong person in my view to say, yeah, I'm giving up my career for my children family. She was smart, fucking excellent at her job, and I'd hire her again in a heartbeat. The only thing she was not good at was the hiring process, but fuck am I glad I just sort of shrugged and took the chance with her. I do staffing and you wouldn't believe the resumes I have seen. One time I was trying to fill a third shift warehouse role for minimum wage, and it was a super urgent need for our client, and in a remote area. The only guy with experience I could get to bite was very interesting. All his resume said was, "I've done warehouse stuff for a long time. I have fuck you tatted on my forehead. Please let me get in front of you though. I'm the definition of don't judge a book by the cover." Screamed the guy, Skyped with him, and had him come in to meet with me. He was great. I let the client know what to expect before sending him on the interview. They hired him on the spot. I work for one of the largest staffing firms in the United States, so I've seen probably well over 1,000 CVs in my tenure here. I wouldn't say this was a bad CV, more that it was just the funniest one I've ever seen. We receive a lot of applications through typical job boards such as Indeed or CareerBuilder, and when they apply we get sent an email that has their CV attached to it with the job they applied for. We received numerous applications from one person, and when we opened the CV attachment expecting to see their experience, it was actually a one-page description of how this particular man cheated on his girlfriend multiple times, and this was how she was getting back at him, by screwing him out of the positions he was trying to apply for by replacing his CV with this document. Easily one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my 2 years at this company. We laughed about it for hours. A guy applying for a position in agriculture research just sent a photo of a plant in his backyard. Unfortunately, the worst I've ever seen was submitted by my friend who I vouched for before he submitted his resume. Now, we were in all the same college classes, and mostly all the same project groups. So his resume could have contained all the same stuff my first resume did, plus what he did the 2 years out of college. I didn't have a whole lot of impressive stuff being just out of college when I applied, but it was well formatted and thought out. He submitted a jumbled pile of crap. There was at least 4 different fonts, random missing bullets, no sort of organization, missing important dates and keywords. We did the hiring as a team, but my boss handed me his resume and asked, "Is this your friend? Is this what he's capable of?" To be honest, I was shocked, because my friend did well in school and was pretty intelligent. All I could say was, "He's better in person, and can figure stuff out even if he's never learned it before." I got him the interview, and my boss wouldn't put him past the first interview. He said it was a horrible interview, and my friend showed no interest and couldn't elaborate on any of the bullet points on his resume whatsoever. It was absolutely shocking and embarrassing for me. I'm not sure if it's the worst, but it was the most entertainingly bad. You know in Legally Blonde where Reese Witherspoon gives out her resume and it's on pink, scented paper? I got one like that about 3 years ago, which, looking it up on Google just now to confirm, made this reference 15 years out of date, though if it was scented, I missed it. The resume started off, literally her first paragraph, talking about how Legally Blonde was her favorite movie. It was full of doodles in the margins and specifically requested I not contact her previous employers because she felt she was fired unfairly, and instead listed several sorority sisters as references. She compared herself to Elle Woods several times, explicitly saying any hiring manager who wouldn't hire her off of this resume was doing so because they couldn't handle her individuality. I'm honestly not entirely sure if this was a legit resume or some kind of joke. It had almost nothing to do with the job listing. The job went unfilled. We chose literally no one over this. A real fan of Elle Woods knows that she would not have made excuses for being fired. She would have just proved that her previous employers made the wrong decision. Just yesterday I was interviewing a girl that mentioned sequel curiosity in her CV. So it's the middle of the interview and I randomly asked her if she is confident with sequel, to which she responds, "Well, I personally don't know how it works, but my boyfriend is a programmer and is very good at it." No, we did not hire her boyfriend. It was mostly a bunch of bullet points about why he didn't like cheese. I want to hear this story. Haha. His last job was at a cheese factory. I suspect he was fired from there and didn't want to say, so he kind of overplayed the not liking cheese thing as a reason for leaving. It was still very weird to be on a CV though. I am not making this up. I was doing the hiring for a company and a guy put on a line of his qualities that he was smarter than the average bear. For those of you that don't know, this was a favorite line from the main character in the cartoon Yogi Bear. I helped my old boss skim through CVs a while back. A student applying for a job as a barista. Their opening line: I don't believe coffee is a drink, I believe it is an experience, and you need me to be the face of that journey. He had a little waffle about how coffee changed his life and molded him as a person, how coffee has been his savior in university. This kid seemed to really be into coffee. It was well written, but we were a coffee shop in a shopping center. We didn't need his prose. He was an English student, and the CV read as if it was a piece of coursework. The only experience he had down was coffee drinker for 19 years. The kid was 19. He didn't get the job, but I'm sure he graduated well with how well the opening letter was written though. This sounds like a fine resume. A barista is typically a no experience required position. At that point you just want to know that he can keep the orders straight and be pleasant to work with. You should have brought him in for an interview because the resume shows he may be interesting to be around. It had a horrible font, was brightly colored and had cutesy paw prints on. You missed out hiring a golden retriever. Classic rookie mistake. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.